called Intentional Learning, How and Why You Should Learn Data Jawn. We'll be joined by Chen shortly. Right here. With an ever-growing industry of skills, knowledge, frameworks, and tools, in this session, Amy will unpack how data folks prioritize what to learn and how they actually learn them in this interactive session. Interactive, talking to people, as she said.
Best friends. We're all best friends now.
Fun fact about Amy, Amy was a classics and chemistry major in college and did a major career shift into analytics by joining what was then Fishdown Analytics, which is now DBT Labs, in 2019. Before DBT Labs, Amy lived in Microsoft Access and massive Excel sheets. So, a few last notes before we jump into the talk itself. Please join the Slack channel, Coalesce Intentional Learning. Shortly, Amy will be giving us instructions on how we should interact during the session. If you're not part of DBT Community Slack, you have time to join right now. Visit the community.getdbt.com website and search for Coalesce Intentional Learning channel. And then for New Orleans attendees specifically, please be aware that there's a 30-second lag between what's happening here and what's being broadcast. So try to, as best as you can, to not share any spoilers or anything that may not be yet heard by folks who are tuning in.
There are no spoilers. We're okay.
Over to you, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miguel. Well, hello, everyone. One heads up. Can we have the Slack up on the other slide? Yeah, so we're gonna, is it a festival, is it whatever? So please, everyone, join in the Slack channel because that's gonna be live streaming as I talk. So feel free to send memes. If this doesn't feel like an AOL chat room, I feel like I'm gonna be fired. It's a failure. Like we need to bring up the vibes. But overall, thank you so much for joining me today. It's lovely to see all your faces. So my talk is, I should probably introduce myself a little bit more. So I'm the partner engineering manager at DBT Labs for the partnerships team. And a lot of my focus is around partner enablement. And what that essentially means is I spend a lot of time thinking about different experiences and needs that partners have. It could look like a consultant who needs to know the best practices to implement DBT at their client, or it could look like a sales engineer who needs to know enough about DBT to be dangerous. Essentially, there's a lot of context switching, a lot of things I have to take into account and what their needs are. But on top of that, I get to be the manager of an incredible, amazing team, some of which are in the crowd right there. Hey, Bobby. He's now awkward now. But essentially, my amazing team, I really spent a lot of time thinking about, what do they need for essentially what they need for their job today and hopefully what they need for their job in the future. And that also means really expanding out their technical capabilities and making sure to direct them, especially because we work on the partnerships team. We spend a lot of time knowing a lot of the different partner tooling and how they work alongside our tools. Now, in terms of this session, I like to think a lot about it as like paying it forward. We all have so much data journey knowledge, data learning knowledge that we all have inside of us, and unless you happen to be a data influencer or a Substack, a lot of times that knowledge is locked up, and I want to shift this. I want us to start this conversation. It's the last day of we're having our closing session soon, so we've already made friends with each other at Dave & Buster's, right? Yeah? So we're now friends, we can talk to each other and kind of build upon that knowledge. So it will be a bit of an experimental talk. Did that go forward? Oh, okay, sorry. The goal here today is to have a conversation. I want us to have a conversation both in person in this room as well as online, which is why, oh my God, people have sent awesome gifts. Thank you. Keep that going. There is a 30-second delay, so be kind. I'm trying to monitor both audiences. But overall, if the pandemic has not shown us anything, it's the fact that our world is only as small as we want it to be, and the fact that we're in this moment together, the fact that this is the first in-person Coalesce feels very valuable to me, and I want to test out this new functionality. Let's figure out what this could look like and how much we can interact both in this room together and also with our friends on Slack with continuously amazing memes. So how this is gonna work is, one thing I wanted to just note, all of you have very relevant information. I don't care if you identify as non-technical or technical, you have just valuable information, and I want you to share what it means for your data journey and what you've learned and decided to learn. And how that's going to happen is I'm going to lay down a framework just so that we have the same common language. Then I'm going to give you some questions to kind of up the vibe, get you starting to know how to talk to each other again. And then we're going to start surfacing up some knowledge. Overall, my last thing I wanted to say before I dive into it is I want to invite all of you to be mildly uncomfortable. Outside of the fact that some rooms have been icy cold and like no heat, regardless of that, be mildly uncomfortable mentally, because I find that that is where folks tend to expand their horizons. You're pushing just enough to learn where you're not being freaked out, like, oh, this is too overwhelming. So inviting you to be moderately uncomfortable here. Now, in terms of the thing that you're going to keep in mind as I go through my slides now, I want you to think about what were key milestones in your own data journey. Maybe you're just starting out today, or perhaps you're like 5 years in. All of you have relevant information, and I want you to start thinking about what were the learnings, what are things that you would have not done, and what are things that definitely you recommend to everybody. A framework that you can think about this is perhaps you are speaking to someone who's about to start their data journey, or perhaps they are a manager of a new data team, and they want to know how to really build out the structure. And online, so we're going to get started for the first question. I know it's a horrible joke, and I've made it even worse. And how this is going to work is, folks, as I read out this question with the answers, you're going to raise your hand for if it's A, B, or C. And online, because there's a 30-second delay, feel free to just start answering multiple choice. Just, is it A, is it B for you? So let's get warmed up. A SQL query walks into a bar and walks up to 2 tables and asks, can I join you? Is the answer A, the table's answer, no, this is only an inner join? Anyone? You don't think? Okay. Oh, I'm starting to worry now. If it's D, that's fine, but also a little sad. B, the table's answer, oh, only if you have the right keys. Thank you, okay. C, why are you doing this? Thank you, Bobby. D, please stop, I'm leaving. We'll be friends later, it's okay, you can, awesome. And next up, okay, so in this room and also online, I'm curious to ask, how do you identify? Do you view yourself as a technical person? Nice. And then B, a non-technical person. Awesome, I love your faces being here. So the first thing I want to dig into is, why do you learn this thing? How do you decide to learn a specific technology or a concept in data? Well, oftentimes I find it falls into these key categories, which are by example, by interest, and by requirement. Depending on where you are in the data journey, oftentimes you're going to favor one of these categories a little bit more, and obviously nothing is straightforward. There's often a blending of some, but for the simplicity of this conversation, we're going to break them down in this way. Now, I'm going to use my own talk as a way to break down what all these categories mean, which is by interest, maybe you're like, what the fuck is Data Jawn? And maybe by example, my marketing team was very kind to label me as leading voice. And by requirement, maybe you're here because it's your job requirement, or maybe it's all of these things. So let's start with by example. What this often means is we are often led by what we hear about or what the data industry has validated for us. Perhaps you're listening to data influencers that are like CEOs of companies or a head of product, or maybe more likely you are guided by your mutuals or your peers. This is more likely, this is what I've generally come across, and what that often means is we're essentially starting to vibe check. If we come across a particular tool, a concept, we'll ask each other and be like, hey, have you heard of this? What is this about? And even in our own internal data industry Slack channel, what we've noticed is people will just post in there asking about a particular tool because they're seeking for historical context or maybe just personal experience. And this collective sanity checking is super helpful because it allows us to weed through the noise, because as we know, there's a lot of marketing out there. It's like, this is the latest and greatest thing. When I first started, there was definitely a lot of that, and it was super helpful for me to be able to go to my own coworkers and say, hey, I just heard about this. What is this about? Should I care about this? And it was so nice to get that collective response of, oh, this is actually game-changing, or this is actually historical, but this is why it's a little bit different. Like, all of that foundation is so helpful. But you do need to call out the fact that where this often falls apart is network. Oftentimes, starting out, you don't have the built-in network. You don't have the folks to essentially vibe check with you. And we want to be mindful of that, because while data Twitter is free, weeding through the noise is not. So my curiosity is asking you, how did you do it? How did you find your trusted folks and the industry people you wanted to follow? And how did you weed through the noise? And here are just some screenshots that I took from Twitter as well as our own internal Slack about what this could look like. So Brittany Bennett was sweet enough to answer my question about what did you learn from your own data journey? And one thing that she pointed out was the fact that you have to think about values. Perhaps just because someone is an expert in their field doesn't mean you are aligned with them. Doesn't mean that that is where you want to head towards. And I just included Tristan because it just means everyone has a different knowledge base. Everyone wants to know what is going on. So let's go over to by interest. I like to think about this as like the true nerd approach. You're interested because you're interested, and thus you're going to invest in it. And talking about this, let's just quickly clear the air about Data Jawn. So who here has heard of Jawn? Awesome. Please don't make fun of the fact that I probably pronounced it wrong for Philly people. You're like nodding. But basically what Jawn is it's a Philadelphia slang word for thing. So if you had a sentence that uses the word thing, you can use Jawn instead. And what's really fun about that is a data Jawn is just a data thing. It doesn't matter what you want to learn. And why I put it into my talk is because a lot of times we are very intrigued by things that are different. And I know a lot of analytics engineers in this room are guided by, that interests me, and I'm going to go down that rabbit hole to figure it out. And obviously, you're hitting the butt in my sentence, and that's because a lot of this there's a privilege in this, right? Like, we all have our own jobs that we have to take into account. We have our own care responsibilities, and we also have to take into account our mental capacity of being able to just continue on projects. So my intrigue here is, what were projects that you took on? What worked out, and also, were you able to complete it? And the last thing, which is very notable, is just by requirement. As we all know, necessity fuels innovation and growth. And a lot of times where our data journeys have started is our boss came up to us and we're like, hey, you got to go do the thing. And you're not going to say to your boss, no. That's actually how I know about marketing attribution. I had, whoever has experienced marketing attribution, you probably know it was not the best to learn on a consulting job where you're paid by 2-week sprints, and I overscoped a lot. But it was very meaningful that I got to learn about it, and now I understand what those docs are about. Outside of that, we also have to call out social economic pressures. Like, I find this happens very often with data scientists, actually. There are a lot of, just because there's a sheer amount of lists out there that are like, this is the job you can have that makes a shit ton of money when you graduate college. And data scientists, you get that fancy title and you get that fancy money, and that's awesome. That's totally fine. And I want to just call that it is okay if your data journey started out there, or maybe you're still here and that's leading you. But the thing to call out here is these are high pressure situations, right? Like, having to learn something your boss told you, and also taking into account trying to just survive in a capitalist society, because I assume the majority of us are not independently wealthy. This is very difficult to experience. So my question to you here is, like, what was that milestone like? How did you accomplish it, or are you still aiming towards it, and what's been working? So now let's dig a little bit into how before, yes, we're going to go into the interactive part, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So find your space. when you are going by example, you really want to find your trusted network. Maybe it's joining DBT Slack or Locally Optimistic, as you can see. It's actually one of my, my Slack communities there. The idea here is just show up, be a human, talk to people, and find those folks that you can engage with. Or maybe like me, I joined a growth-minded company, so everyone was really friendly, and that was really helpful for me to be able to actually survive in the tech industry when I switched over from chemical manufacturing. Overall, you need to find your peers, and you need to find those industry voices that align with you. And also note that it's okay to break up, because when I started, I spent a lot of time subscribing to almost every newsletter and blog on the GitLab Learning and Resources page, and wasn't helpful because it was just a lot of noise, and some people just wrote in a way that didn't align with how I wanted to be taught or just wanted to experience the space. And I think I started around 10 subscriptions, and right now today I stand around 4, and that's totally fine. Having that startup mentality is pretty okay here. And in terms of by interest, a lot of times I see failures here by essentially a lack of goals and sunk cost fallacy, because oftentimes while it's really easy to get started, it's really difficult to continue going on. So my recommendation is always create artificial deadlines. Maybe it means you are finishing a certification, finishing a workshop, completing a hackathon. Put in those different pressures. I actually recently attended a conference that I was definitely not well positioned in some ways, and I spent about 2 weeks learning about KSQL, so I'd be ready. And let me tell you, the KSQL docs, they are not friendly and really painful. Thank goodness we don't need to think that much about partitions and time windows in the same concept. But it was good because it essentially pushed me to do something that was uncomfortable and gave me that pressure to do it. There's also this other side of things. Knowing where you're aiming also can help along with a lot of guilt. I'm sure a lot of you have picked up a project and then didn't have the time to complete it. But having that artificial deadline helps you kind of just like level set of like, why didn't I complete this? Is it because I've gone as far as I wanted to go? And that's okay. That's totally fine. But dealing with that guilt is really useful when you have that conversation with yourself instead of like, oh, I'll take this on eventually. Now, one of the ways I did this is I actually created an internal study guide, study group. It was essentially created for my own devious reasons. I wanted to have an artificial deadline for myself, and thus I created a workshop. I would just group everybody from different teams, and they would be, oh, that turned blue. That's cool. A lot of it was focused on the DBT ecosystem because it was a foundation we already knew about, and how we approached this was we would have one set goal, we would complete that certification or that workshop, and we built on existing communication. So we held weekly office hours to just line up with where you are at, what was stopping you, and also we have our Slack channel, which is often asynchronous, so you can just type in of like, these are the blockers. And it's really nice to have a bunch of people who are together focused on the same thing. But obviously, it's a little hard at a company because different priorities come up. We had different teams who weren't able to complete at the same time. And that's where some things just weren't as comfortable. It also made for just like project management, seeing where people are, very difficult. And of course, marketing bullshit comes up again. We have definitely done workshops because we're all new to this. We've definitely done workshops that were not ideal, were not technical enough, and that was also on me for choosing them. Overall, I'm really proud of what our group has created because we completed a bunch of Airflow certifications. Some folks even created their own Python workshop, of which I'm sure some of you have actually experienced at this conference. They built upon it, not the actual workshop itself, but my question to you is, did you do something like this? Did you have a friend group who accessed this, or do you actually wish you had this? Okay, my last slide before, can you tell I'm like leading up, like, okay, yeah, you guys gotta do stuff. By requirement, the obvious one is about asking about professional development. You're at a conference here, so you know that there are workshops that happen. There's also, obviously, budgets. You can buy courses and whatnot. If you're a partner, I highly recommend looking into partner programs. One of the ways I've gotten free certifications or heavily, heavily discounted courses is essentially asking for those. And we were able, I don't think I'm allowed to name the partner names, so just in case, but just noting that those partner programs exist and they're very beneficial. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in partnerships. And then borrowing from example, obviously, there's curated lists of workshops, time-tested, maybe post in Data Twitter and find out. So overall, it's now time for all of you to join the conversation. And yes, I welcome you to be mildly uncomfortable, and that's going to be OK. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And remember, we're in this moment together. Like, let's make the most out of it. So how are we going to do this? Well, folks in New Orleans, I'm going to essentially guide you along. I'm going to tell you what to talk to each other about. And then, yes, 2 of you will be jumping on stage with me. I had a mic. I will get the mic. The mic will be up here, and I'm hoping you folks will share your own data milestones. And then people on Slack, well, you're already, I don't know what that's floating there, but cool. You're already speaking in it, but you're going to essentially bring as much of a chat room vibe as possible, and you're gonna join in, and hopefully timing works out. I'm gonna read some of those responses from Slack. So we're all in this together. So my question to you first, and yes, you're gonna raise your hand here, is how did you accomplish your milestone? And what led you there? Was it A, by interest? Nice. By requirement? By example? Or perhaps a mixture? Cool. OK. Miguel, I'm going to need you to be my timekeeper, if that's OK. So online, you're going to continue to answer. We're not threading, so sorry, community team, if you're in this room. You're going to send a word or a meme that actually describes your data journey. And folks, I know you're probably grouped with people you know, but try to break this up. Look to your left, look to your back, I don't know. Talk to that person. Tell them what your milestone was and what happened. So I'm going to need 2 minutes.
Perfect. Let me know. When should I kick it off? Right now?
2 minutes. Thank you. Miguel, can you come up? Do you mind standing here? OK, cool. Do you mind standing here and giving the person? OK.
Yeah.
I'm going to need the mic.
Yes.
OK, cool.
What do you need?
Yeah, do you mind? You can be my timekeeper, and I can see. 30-second check. Five, four, three, two, one. OK, come back. So we're going to the next one. I'm going to give everyone a minute. Do you mind starting the 1 minute? So decide among you folks who are 2 brave souls that are going to come up stage and essentially tell me 4 to 5 things, sentences about what you just discussed. OK, we got 1 minute going. I'm just waiting for all of you to look at each other scared. I will chuck this at you. No, wait, threatening is bad. You didn't hear that. Okay, we go. Oh, I can't bake. I could probably provide swag. I have OG. I have like every swag from DBT Labs and Fish Down Analytics. I might, okay. But bribery is bad also. No bribery. We didn't bribe anyone. We didn't threaten anyone in the session, right? Cool, cool. Okay, but yes, I will need 2 of you in terms of online. We're gonna do the same. Build upon your section. There's been some obvious amazing memes. In those memes, can you thread up and tell us what those milestones are, how you accomplished them, what would you have done differently, and we'll thread up there. And these are the same questions for you folks, just in case. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, cool. We need 2 people up here. And then we're gonna have just a quick time check. Okay, cool. Everyone gets 2 minutes. Yes! Success, yes! Brave souls, please introduce yourself. You do have to come up here. So yeah, introduce yourself. Would it be helpful if I had the slides up also? No?
Sure, yeah.
Cool, I'll just go back. Here.
All right. I'm Steven, hey.
Hi, Steven.
So my milestone, nothing original, nothing that you all haven't done, but it was just learning DBT. And I accomplished it by example. I was actually a product manager on a data team. I didn't actually need to do any DBT. It would have been fine if I just told people what DBT to do, but it looked like a lot of fun and I wanted to, join in too. So I just saw the DBT they were doing, went to some of the trainings they were doing, and started putting in PRs. And they were like, your syntax is wrong. This is all bad. You don't know how to do Git. But I figured it out with enough trial and error. What I would have done differently is, I think if I had known that I was going to get so hands-on, I probably would have paid more attention to some of the initial trainings and stuff they did, and so that they sometimes maybe they got trained and then they trained me later, and I could have just bit in the initial training. But it also was sometimes you have to learn by just bugging people, and they might be a little bit annoyed, but I feel like they also eventually learn it. So.
Thank you so much. Everyone, give it up. Thank you so much. I'm just going to make awkward eye contact with every single one of you until someone comes up. Yes, let's go. Yay! I think that's on.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's very bright.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Seth. And for me, it was getting to sort of grow and build out a team. I think in many ways sort of stumbled into it. I was the team of one, that then the company grew and needed more people, and so I had the opportunity to sort of put my hand up and say, yes, I would like to sort of run the team. But what I would have done differently is ask for help earlier. I think there was a lot of times where I was like, well, I'm in this position, I have to be a leader and blah, 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 and then you realize oh, I've never done this before, I have no idea what I'm doing. And just realizing people have your back, and asking for help is not a sign of weakness by any means.
Thank you so much. Everyone clap, please. Okay, so I fully admit I fucked up on time, so let's quickly, just give me 1 minute, and did we have any great story? Okay, so we have someone who said, I don't know what's going on with this data, but I should probably learn the skills to interact with it. Okay, that's really good. And when we're presenting 30 seconds in the future, what is this? Okay, cool. No one else? So how do we continue on this conversation? So I invite everyone to continue talking. I know we're about to, this is the last day for most of you, and I just wanted to still dare you to continue on, talk to each other. Join the Slack channel, share your own stories that if you weren't comfortable coming on stage, please share it. I think it's so meaningful that we have all this knowledge to put it out there for everyone to understand and not lock it away in data Twitter. Obviously, this is in DBT Slack, so we're working on this, building upon it. But overall, I really want you to build connections and be part of this. And overall, I just want to say thank you. And now you can run away.